It is 5 o'clock, and the Kerrville City Council is in workshop session. One adaptation is that the Curry Economic Development Corporation will not be giving their full quarterly update, although they have given us some printed info. Gil Salinas is dealing with hurricane issues in the valley, and he will come at another time and report to us. Quickly, anything, and he's not here to answer, but anything that you particularly want him to answer when he is with us?
I would just like to say I'm excited about the forum that they are putting together for us. 2 days in November, and lots of different seminars to attend, and I think it's exciting for Kerrville to have something like that. So it doesn't have anything to do with the report, but I just think it's worth mentioning and a good thing for us.
It really is, and that is in conjunction with the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And there will be people from around the state who will be coming to this, and it's a good way for them to see Kerrville and what's going on. It'll be at the Arcadia, but in other sites around town as well, and good exposure for downtown. Okay, and I will say this, that forum and some other things that KDC is doing is that combination of they're working to bring good businesses here, but they're also working for retention and strengthening of existing businesses. So, okay, then let's proceed with the report from Development Services. Mr. Guillermo. I say Mr. Guillermo. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, sir. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening we'll provide you an update on the ongoings in Development Services. This works. So these are the topics of discussion for this evening. We'll cover the Development Services dashboard. We'll talk a little bit about permit types, plan review information, some major projects, and lastly, a brief update on departmental staffing. So as you can see here, this is the dashboard that captures data through the month of August. The revenue that we have received this fiscal year has been lower than the banner year that we experienced last year. Last fiscal year, we had a number of large projects that were completed, and this fiscal year, due to various factors, many projects were delayed. We are hopeful that this coming fiscal year that we will be able to have many of those large projects start. I will highlight what some of those projects will be later in this presentation. As for expenses, we have been conservative with our spending due to our lagging revenues. The total permits that we have processed through August has been 1,705. This results in $7 million in commercial value and 305,000 square feet of residential activity. You can see that the permit activity plateaued in April and in May and has since been on a decline, and that's on the left top upper right line graph that you see up there. Code enforcement has conducted 663 cases, of which 384 cases are reactive and 280 cases that were proactive. Planning has processed 35 plats and continues to meet the 30-day shot clock. So let's get into a little bit of permit type and the different things that we see within Development Services. So first of all, Development Services is comprised of 3 divisions. You have building, code enforcement, and the planning division. Building division brings in 87% of the total revenue for the department. The other divisions are 6% and 7% respectively. The next slide will be a bit more detail as to what those revenues consist of. So Development Services has 23 revenue line items, and 66% of those revenues come from the building permit, the plan check fee, and the contractor license fee. The other fees are listed in the pie chart, with the exception of the smaller revenue items, which I present in the next slide for much more detail. This graph further details the permit fee types that are assessed by Development Services. For this fiscal year, 66 represents $301,988, and 34% represents $155,560. You can see from this graph the revenue amounts for the individual line items. I am not going to go through each one of those, but you can see that the bigger revenue items, the building permit, the plan check fee, and the contractor license are the predominantly where Development Services gets their revenue, and then from there it just goes down to the different revenue or fees that we assess over time. In going through the plan review, prior to getting to the plan review data and the information that is involved with that, I wanted to give you some general information about the type of permits, the big permits themselves. So I wanted to share with you some of the permit detail for commercial and residential permits. So this graph right here allows you to see the monthly commercial permits, the monthly trend, and the previous fiscal year trend as well. This graph represents the trend of commercial permits that have been issued during the fiscal year. The darker blue represents last year's activity and overall target. This fiscal year, we experienced an 18% decrease in commercial permits from the previous year. The initial trend looked promising through January. However, as you may recall, we had a little snow incident in the month of February that brought all our permit numbers down. Since April, the trend has been declining, which for the most part mimics last year in that the number of permits declined over the summer. Unlike commercial permits, residential permits only saw a 6% decrease. When looking at the graph, you can see that there are only 5 months that did not exceed the target. April and May saw the largest increase in residential permits and has since been on a downward trend since May. In total, 1,260 permits have been issued, of which 93 are new construction, 107 are remodel and additions, and the balance being other permits, such as electrical permit, plumbing permit, mechanical permit, and some of the other fees that we saw earlier in the other graphs.
How do y'all set your targets?
So this target right here, because we expected, it was an adjustment from the previous year, because normally what we try to do is establish what the average was for the previous year and then look at previous years and adjust from there. And so what we knew that once Vintage Heights was not going to be a project that was going to go forward, we lowered our expectation a little bit lower because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so it's kind of how we go through the process of doing that. Because if you look at the commercial side, it's pretty much the average of what the previous year's was.
Okay.
Does the target fluctuate throughout the year, or does it?
We try not to fluctuate it. If it does fluctuate, we try to do it only at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So that, because we're just adjusting to the numbers that are coming in.
Right.
But most times we try to keep it flat as to what we project.
Okay.
This graph.
Maybe you said that.
Yes.
What's the percentage of the new construction and remodel?
I have to go do the numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head.
93,107.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
It's on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 93 and 107. So we have 93 new construction and 107 remodel / additions that we had. So on this map right here, we'll provide you a little bit more detail about where residential construction is occurring. The red drop pin represents new construction and the blue represents remodel / additions within the city. As you can see from the map, new construction is happening throughout the city. There is a heavier concentration in Comanche Trace. This is to be expected with several annexations that have occurred in that area. And then remodel and additions are mainly concentrated in the core of the city. So I like this map because it shows you that construction and especially for the residential is occurring throughout the city, not just in localized areas.
Do you have something similar to this for commercial?
We can create one. We didn't
Okay.
do it for this purpose, but
I
we
was
can
just
definitely
curious what
create
it
one.
looked like. Okay.
Yep. Now that you kind of have a general idea of the permits that we're seeing, the type of permits that we're seeing, Development Service and other partner departments strive to complete all plan reviews within 10 business days. The process for plan review consists of the following. 1, an application is filled out through My Government Online. The application is approved and an invoice is submitted to the customer. Once the customer pays the plan review fee, it is then assigned to the departments. The departments conduct a review and comment on the project through My Government Online. Staff will then send the disallowed comment letter or approved comment letter to the customer. When disallowed comments are sent to the customer has the opportunity to correct any deficiencies and resubmit the information for additional plan reviews. And at that point, the clock starts again. So once we send it back to the customer, the clock stops. Once the customer resubmits their changes to their plans, a new clock starts as to when we conduct the plan review.
Are there any additional fees?
No. There can be, but we don't necessarily charge.
So then is there a limit to how many times that we
No.
can do that? Okay.
No, there's one in particular that we're on our 8th review
Okay.
at this point in time.
Wow.
And you don't assess additional for that?
No, no, ma'am. If they are approved, the customer's invoiced, and then when they pay for their invoice, that is when the building permit is actually issued through My Government Online. The departments that participate in the plan review process are building, engineering, fire marshal's office, planning, and public works. The graph illustrates the average month. When combined, the city averages 6.4 days to complete a plan review. I did try to get some additional data from other cities and was only able to download the city of San Antonio's data. For this fiscal year, they averaged 9.4 days. In previous years, they have averaged over 100 days. You will see that last year, we only had 2 months in which our average was over our target. This was due to one project having 38 days in November for a commercial project and 23 days for a commercial fire sprinkler project in the month of May. I mention this because with any process, there is variation that can occur. This graph right here represents the variation that exists within the plan review process. On average, we're able to turn around the 10-day plan review process with 88% of the time. Variation occurs for many different reasons. Some of those reasons may be that we're having multiple conversations with customers based on their information. The project is complex and requires a much more thorough review, and that sometimes multiple projects come in at once that sometimes cause a backlog. This does not occur often, however, it does occur every now and then. Plan review can be simple at times and can be difficult at times and consuming much of our time as well. I would like to recognize our staff members from building, Steve Riggs and Jason McMurray, from engineering, Cal Burrow, from fire marshal's office, Jason Lackey, from planning, Drew Paxton and Steve Melander, and from the public works department, Scott Loveland, and any other team members I may have missed. Without their effort and time commitment, we would not be able to turn around the plan reviews as quickly as we do. So get into some potential projects. Here's some examples of the potential commercial projects that are making their way through the city processes. Ridge Hill Senior Apartments has just today paid for their plan review fee, and the departments have been notified to commence their plan review process. So from today until 10 business days, they will get their comments and information and feedback. Hopefully within 6 days, we'll be able to give them information. They can go back, start making adjustments to their plans for whatever is needed, and then they resubmit, and then we continue going forward. And then hopefully, we're in middle of September, by October, they'll have all of their information, they'll pay for their permit, and they can start construction and breaking ground within the next 2 to 3 months, hopefully. Just depends on the plan review process and how much changes they have to make. But I was excited to hear that this afternoon when Trina called me and said, hey, guess who just paid for their plan review? And it was them. So that's a good chunk of change that just came into the department. On the residential side, we're expecting some 587 lots to be developed over the course of the next few years. I think that the next slide you see will give you a sense of where those projects are within the city. And so if you look, I know it's kind of hard to see, especially on the slide up there, but you will see that the projects themselves are spread throughout the city. There's not one area that has one single concentration of projects, but there are multiple projects throughout. You have some projects that will have 161 units. You have some other projects that have 20, 100 and, I can't even read myself, 128, 136 projects, I believe that number is. So there's a lot of projects that are potentially on the horizon that could come through for residential housing.
You
And-
know this because of the planning process or because of just things that, and
Well, the good thing is through the planning process and through the conversations they have with planning, because that's the first stop in the process, right? They come in, they have a discussion with planning, look at zoning, look at the project themselves, what the plats are going to look like. And then from that standpoint, we get a general sense of what those projects are going to entail and what type of units or potential units that may exist within the project. Now, doesn't mean that this is the final number. There's other things that could change as they go through the process, but this, we feel confident that this is a good number to shoot for or expect.
But these are prepaid. I mean, they're not prepaid. These are
Preliminary.
preliminary.
Yes, they're
So
preliminary numbers.
That's all. Okay.
they all have case numbers next to them.
Yeah.
I think it is helpful to recognize that, we often hear this misnomer that there's not development occurring in Kerrville or that there's a lack of housing, and certainly there is, but I think that it's exciting to see that
It is
there are lots
exciting.
on the ground
Absolutely.
that are going through the process and are becoming available
Yeah.
or are available for development in the future. So I think there's hope on the horizon.
Yeah, that's great.
And some of this is infill.
Absolutely.
It's larger infill, but it is infill.
That is
And
correct.
that's something we've talked about.
Yeah, and that's one of the other reasons why we wanted to include the other map to show the houses, new housing construction that was occurring, as well as redevelopment of housing, because it really is infill spread out across the city. It's not just in one geographic area, so that's also exciting.
So some departmental staffing changes. So we have some good news and some bad news in regards to our staffing within the department. The good news is that we were able to fill the permanent technician position that was vacated when one of our team members retired. Sarah Cross joined us from utility building. She has jumped right on in and has been learning and identifying some areas of opportunity for us to continue to improve, which is one of the things when she came and joined us, we gave her the process procedures, we gave her work instructions, and I said, here's the process, here's the work instructions, learn the process, but your main task, your main goal for me is to identify the gaps that you see in the procedures, the gaps that you see in the work instructions, because we've developed these about a year ago. We've modified here and there, but you get so used to doing the process that you don't see it anymore. And so I wanted her to identify those things, and she has. We haven't implemented them yet, but she's identified various opportunities to make the process even faster and more efficient than what we already have in the front staff. The bad news is that I just got word that one of our inspectors is leaving for a private sector job. So we'll be looking to fill one of our building inspectors' positions here very quickly in the next month or so.
I'll just mention also, Sarah was one of the individuals that went through our Leadership Academy that we implemented over the course of this last year. And so we were excited that, Sarah was able to continue to progress her career with the city of Kerrville, transfer departments, but continue to grow in her leadership provision within the city. So.
What do you mean? What Leadership Academy?
So we have a 12-month leadership development academy,
Internal.
essentially, for employees that provides them avenues to grow in their supervisory skills and their leadership skills, and also learn about other departments and the way that our organization operates, more holistically. And those are for individuals all the way from line level, front level staff that are manning customer service desks, all the way up through middle management and beyond. So
This is different than when you're doing your,
it's different than the Lean Six Sigma program.
Yes, it's different from the Lean Six Sigma program.
Yeah, so it's just another leadership development opportunity that we provide for employees.
And this was our first year implementing that program. So we had 15 individuals pretty much graduate from the Leadership Academy, and we'll be starting a new Leadership Academy in October, and we have 10 individuals slotted for that.
and you oversee that too?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I'm a little confused. It is Lean Six Sigma.
No, it's actually separate from Lean Six Sigma.
Okay, so you got parallel, one is leadership and one is Lean Six Sigma.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, let me just say that, when I went to hear, I think 6 folks who've been through the Lean Six Sigma program from several different departments. It was so impressive, and I've said this before, but I come back to it, so impressive in them being able to look at the processes of their departments and say, okay, here's a redundancy, here's an inefficiency, here's something we can do better. And I love it. I think it's great.
Well, and that's the hope of not only having the Leadership Academy is giving them some tools, because one of the classes we do teach in Leadership Academy is a white belt class of Lean Six Sigma. So we give them some basic problem solving tools that then we hope that they can turn around and utilize within their departments. And then also as a green belt goes into their departments or is assigned within their department to actually learn the full spectrum of Lean Six Sigma, those individuals become part of the teams that encompass that green belts team. And so they have some exposure. They basically are able to then assist and help improve those particular processes that they're looking at.
Now, having used the term Lean Six Sigma, I'll be real quick, but my understanding is that it developed in manufacturing.
That is correct.
And you worked on this when you were working with Maquiladoras.
Yes,
right?
when I was working in the maquilas, when I worked at a company called Magna International, the actual plant in Ciudad Acuña was called Dilsa, but it belonged to Magna International. And I started as a green belt in 2001. And then by the end of 2001, early 2002, I was a black belt. And then I became a certified master black belt when I worked for the Woodbridge Group, which also had a maquila in Del Rio. Became a master black belt in 2005. And then at that point, I was responsible for the implementation worldwide for 64 plants worldwide for the Woodbridge Group.
Yeah. And you did this kind of work in Tyler and Dallas before coming here.
That is correct.
Okay, now, if you're a master black belt, we should not mess with you, right?
No. Well, I do actually have a 4th degree black belt in one of the martial arts.
See?
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So you can really put your money where your mouth is.
Yes.
So it's been a little while since we briefed the council on our different employee empowerment initiatives, and so we'll be looking to put that on a future workshop schedule for you all, so we can talk about the multiple programs that we have, because we're having some great success with them.
That'd be awesome. That's good.
But any other questions in regards to development services, I'd be more than happy to answer, and we'll try to get that map for you.
Thank you.
Commercial.
Yes, thank you.
No, good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Drew.
Or Guillermo.
I know. Drew's in development services.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Jared.
All right.
Maybe that's all we have for you for the workshop today. We'll have a short break before the 6 p.m. regular meeting.
All right, okay. We're out of the workshop at 5:22. Be back 6 o'clock for the council meeting.